We are at my friend's incredible podcast studio, shameless plug, called The Move.
The only reason why someone will fail at podcasting is simply because they stop. They quit.
Joining us is Andrew Loranger, founder and CEO of The Move Miami, one of the city's premier podcast studios. A former top Miami loan officer who closed over $1 billion in transactions, Drew has built a creative hub trusted by names like Shaq, Mark Cuban, Gary Vee, Tom Brady, and more.
A couple of months before I started this, I was in mortgages. I absolutely crushed it in mortgages. I made a lot of money, but just because I made a lot of money didn't mean that I was fulfilled. In fact, I was anything but that. It was just one after another, celebrity after celebrity after celebrity after celebrity, and they all talked and they all knew each other. And the difference was I didn't even know what I was doing.
Get ready for an inside look at the rise of podcasting, the business behind the studio boom, and the stories from behind the mic with the creators shaping Miami's media scene. This is Better Decisions.
Welcome to another episode of the Better Decisions podcast. The studio may look a little bit different today in this podcast, and the reason is because we are not in the studio. Today, we are at my friend's incredible podcast studio, shameless plug, called The Move, located here in the heart of Miami, actually in the Wynwood area. The reason we're doing this podcast for you guys watching it out there is to actually understand and to do more than just dive into what is a podcast studio, and a very successful one at that. It's actually because the guests that you've had on in this studio have been nothing short of superstars, some incredible guests. So here in the studio, I'm just going to use your first name. In the studio today, or in your studio today, I'm interviewing Drew, who is the owner, creator, mind behind The Move podcast studio, the biggest, most successful podcast studio here in Miami. Let's start into it. We did a little opener. Look, 5 years ago, Drew, Miami wasn't what it is today. Miami was evolving as a city. It was fighting for legitimacy, and it wasn't quite there. And then since the pandemic, things really accelerated, and there was a movement in of capital, of intellectual capital that came in, financial capital. There was big moves. There was builders coming in. There was entrepreneurs relocating, and quietly creators followed. And it's really obvious to see that's happened when I see the list of your guests that you've had on. And it's not just about the celebrity status, because you've had on, Jonas Brothers, you've had Theo on, Gary Vee, the Jonas Brothers, Mark Cuban, Logan Paul, Ryan Sahan from the real estate industry. But it's not just about the celebrity status. It's about the psychology that underpins the conversations that you've had the incredible ability to hear behind the scenes. So it's like the behind the scenes understanding of this dialogue, and you got to see what they've said. You get to see their work ethic, and you get to see how these people are winners. And that's what I really want to get into. So let's just dive into it. Let's start off by just give us a little background of how this started so people can understand the scale of the operation as it is today.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you for having me back on, because this is the second time now that I've been on this.
You were one of my first guests 3.5 years ago when I started my podcast.
Yeah, and that was the first time I'd ever been interviewed on a podcast, by the way. So yeah, it's a pleasure. I appreciate it. Man, where do I begin? So when we first did our interview together, it was right before I started the studio. I mean, a couple of months before I started this.
Mm-hmm.
And I was in mortgages. I absolutely crushed it in mortgages. I made a lot of money. But just because I made a lot of money didn't mean that I was fulfilled. In fact, I was anything but that. And I truly hated the industry that I was in, even though everything about it online showed that I loved it and I was the best at it. And I specifically remember calling you because I was having a conundrum of sorts where
I'd call it an existentialist crisis. That's what it was.
And I was like, David, I hate this. I absolutely despise it. I cannot do this anymore. And you know, what was odd about that is looking back at it, you know, I think I made like 74 grand that month. I had a great month. I had a couple really big closings at the Armani, and I did something in, you know, a new construction that had closed. And so for me, that was fantastic. And I still hated it. And I was just like, all right, so it's not the money. There's something that's missing. I don't know what it is, and I couldn't figure it out. We went away to a retreat center,
Uh-huh.
and which is where we met. And it was there I continued to go through this program, and I was doing breath work and childhood reparenting and all of this, like, some people would call it spiritual, but I think it was more like psychological and subconscious hypnotherapy, going into like old traumas and wounds and things of that nature to uncover a lot of the blockages that I had, the reason why I was even pursuing all of this money and chasing these things. And I realized, like, I didn't really want any of that. I wanted something else, and I wanted to feel fulfillment. I wanted to build genuine connections, and I wanted to do something that I loved. And I got this idea for this podcast, and I was like, well, this all sounds fun. Like, I want to try that. And so I, you know, much like yourself, did a logo, and I did an intro video, and I hired a videographer, and I put this whole thing together to start a podcast. And that turned into me buying equipment and building an entire studio in my apartment. And it was after a couple of months, the podcast itself just wasn't doing that hot. Like, and it was very expensive. You know what goes into a podcast?
It's a lot of money, and it's time.
Time
It's a
and
lot of time.
aggravation and going back and forth with your editors. I don't like this clip. You know, why do you clip me here? Like, it was just a lot of back and forth. And I was like, I can't do this anymore, as much as I loved it. And so I decided, you know what, I'm just going to rent my studio, see if anybody wants to use it. And so I made a story on Instagram. Hey guys, if anybody's interested, you know, I built this beautiful studio in my apartment. It's officially available for rent. Within 48 hours, I had my first client. Someone saw that story. They reached out to me. It was a gentleman by the name of Cody Sperber. He's a big real estate guy in Arizona. And he was interviewing Wes Watson, who at the time was like really big in fitness. And they came in, they interviewed, they were like, dude, this is amazing. Like, can we come here all the time? You should do this more often. You should make this a full-time thing. And so I was like, all right, I'll make a little website. And my next client was a Miami Heat player. And so my next client was Theo Vaughn. And it was just like, how did I just get like these huge celebrities walking into my apartment? I'm like picking my socks and pants up off the floor to clean up for these guys.
That's surreal.
You know, and it was one after another after another. At the time, there was only one studio in Miami. It was very small. It had been around for like 15 years. And I was the other option. And we just got bombarded. I mean, it was just one after another, celebrity after celebrity after celebrity after celebrity. And they all talked and they all knew each other. And the difference was I didn't even know what I was doing. I had no idea how to use a camera. The first couple of shoots I did, I was at the wrong shutter speed. Like the people were like looking like they were moving in slow motion because I didn't know how to shoot. And so I just figured it out. And I was like looking up on YouTube, like, how do I fix the shutter speed? Because like, why is this blurry? Why is the person out of focus? You know, I wouldn't even charge people because I was just like, I'm sorry, I like really messed this one up. And then the big guys, they would come with their team of producers, directors, like they had a whole squad, 8 or 9 people with them. And I would learn, like they were changing the settings on my cameras and they were doing things. And I was learning from these people who were experts at like the highest level. And I was like, oh, that's cool. I didn't know that you could do that. And they're like, isn't this your studio? What do you mean? And I learned about peaking and ISO and like all f-stop and how all these things worked and how I shouldn't use these lenses. I should get different lenses. I must have gone through 4 or 5 variations of equipment purchases to the tune of like 80 or 90 grand I spent erroneously on the wrong equipment before I found like the right stuff, because I was just trying to figure it out. And thank God I had done well in mortgages, so I had money to do this. But I know that's not everybody's story. And as a result, I just got better. And I got so good. There was a time when these clients would come in, because I ended up signing a contract with a couple of players from the Heat. We did 60 episodes together. Every single time they came, there was a massive upgrade made to the studio every time they came. Because the time before, they would be like, hey, you know, I'd really love a TV here so we could see her run a show. Got a TV the next time they came. Oh, I'd really love another TV here because we'd love to like pull questions up or pull like live footage up so that we could see it and talk to the players mid. All right, got another TV. I'd really love to see a clock. You wanted one? I got 2 clocks, you know, so that you could see your clock and he could see his clock. And so it was just like I kept evolving the space and upgrading it based on the needs of my clients. And I lost money like hand over fist for the first year, like just a ton of money to the tune of probably 200 grand, just completely lost. But it was all learning, and it was all investment, and it was all upgrades, and it was all getting better. And it was like the investment that I would have made in going and getting an MBA, I invested it in my business, and I reinvested every dollar, and I just got better. And the clients saw me investing my time and energy and giving them a better experience, and they just kept coming back, and they kept referring people to me.
It sounds like a fairy tale, so like a Cinderella story.
Yeah.
But what's incredible as I'm listening to you and I'm imagining what it was like for you in those early moments, and now I'm sitting in one of your studios. You have how many studios?
We have 4 here.
4 studios here. And again, I know you've got, we'll get into that later on in the podcast, you've got bigger plans coming as you expand forward. My first question for you is really this. What would you attest that early, almost like immediate overnight reaction of people wanting to come and shoot podcasts? Where does that come from? Is that a city thing? Is that something that you think would have happened in any city in America?
I don't think,
Or was there something specific about Miami?
this is Miami. This would have, I personally maybe would have had a fraction of the success in New York, maybe, but in any other city in America, there's no way. There's no way. I mean, what are the odds that I've got Rick Ross sitting on my couch in any other city in America?
On your dirty socks while you...
What are the odds that I've got the players coming, hanging out, and then after they finish the episode, they're hanging out on the balcony, they're all talking, having a good time.
And are these a lot of these guests, they have a residency in Miami, or they're visiting, or like where are these? Like, give me some examples of like how they came through your door.
So like as an example, so we've worked a lot with Shaquille O'Neal. Shaq doesn't live here. Shaq lives in Atlanta, and he has his own studio, by the way. He films the Big Show with Shaq, or the Big Pod with Shaq, out of his home studio in Atlanta. But he also has a home here in Davie.
Mm-hmm.
And so
he's had one in Miami for a long time. He had a place on the islands for quite a while.
But his like main place of residence is Atlanta. And the thing is, he also has a place in Davie. So anytime he's in Davie, he's here at the studio filming, and it's just based on proximity. And the thing was, I have such a good connection with the people who referred him to me, because most of these the bigger people are all sent here by word of mouth. Like, they don't go look on Google and find us. They're sent here because someone told them. Oddly enough, we had Sunday Conversations with Caleb Presley, if you're familiar with that show. And we didn't even use any of the studios. They wanted a custom set. So we built a custom set in like our lounge area for them. And they interviewed Shaq. So when they called me and they were like, hey, we're coming through town. And I'm like, oh, this is amazing. How do you guys hear about us? And they were like, well, our talent, they couldn't tell me, they couldn't disclose the talent at the time because of an NDA, but they said our talent basically told us that he didn't want to film anywhere else. Like, we had to go here because we had another option, which was significantly cheaper, and it was in Doral. And they were like, we're not going to Doral. I'll go to the Move. That's my spot. And so they said, we booked here because of his, he was the one that said we had to go here. So that, it was that referral because of the relationship that we built with our clients.
What is, like, those people coming through the door, and you said Shaq's got a place up in, Atlanta, he has a place here in Davie, and then, but that's just one guy. He's got a base here. And then people like Theo Von and Gary V and Jonas Brothers. I mean, how did they end up here? Was that something that they were in town?
They flew in, they were in town. Oddly enough, the first shoot that we did with Theo Von was interviewing a music icon of sorts in the rap and hip hop scene, and her name is Sexy Red. And so Sexy was doing a show here with, I believe, Drake. This was several years ago. This is when I first started the studio. I think he was like my third guest.
These are big names as well.
Huge. And so she was doing a show at the arena with Drake.
Right.
And they had done the show that evening, the night before. In the morning, they were supposed to come and they were supposed to shoot at 2:00. So they booked the studio at 2:00. She didn't even get there until 8:00 at night. So Theo booked it at 2:00. He arrived at noon because he showed up early. Yeah. And he wants to make sure everything is how it's supposed to be. He's looking at all the camera angles. He's adjusting the backgrounds. He's making sure, these people operate at a different level of excellence.
Yeah, I want to get into that in a bit, because obviously it seems like the way that as operators, the way they operate is at a different frequency to the general population, and that's reason why they are where they are.
Yeah.
But before we get into that, coming in, as you're hearing people talking about Miami, are you feeling a change in the air
For sure.
as
So,
people coming
you
through?
know,
And how did you identify
yeah.
that?
So, I mean, I guess to full circle from that, before we segue, he was in town only to film this episode with her because she was here at the arena with Drake,
Mhm.
right? So he flew in from LA just to do this show. They had a wonderful show, and then they literally left, and that was it. So I don't even think they did anything other than come to my studio, right? And this has been the case with so many people. I've had people that have flown into like the Miami Executive Airport up north, and then they'll literally just fly to the executive airport, hop in a black car, come to the studio, leave the studio, go back to the black car to the airport and leave.
Yeah.
They didn't even go anywhere. They literally just came to film. And so it's really interesting. I've noticed there's transiency within Miami where people are just coming and going, right? But people want to stay. And I've heard time and time again when the clients come, whether they're just a regular podcaster starting out or if it's somebody of this caliber, they come here and they're like, I want to look at places. Like I want to live in Miami, and Miami is amazing. I love
What do you think that is? I mean, like from an outside perspective, obviously I sell this stuff all day long, so I know why people are calling me. But when you've got that level of celebrity, someone who can really go anywhere and buy anything, what are you seeing is triggering them? Are you getting any glimpse of that?
Yeah, I personally believe it's community and relationships. Because here's the thing is like I can go to Arizona or Texas, it doesn't matter. I can go to any of these cities in these states and I can meet great people, right? But are those people on the same wavelength of the direct trajectory in which I want to take myself and my business?
Mhm.
And the answer, maybe 8 out of 10 times, is no, right? And that's not a knock on them. There's plenty of successful people. And I think there's more successful people in other cities because Miami caters to a lot of flash. And not all the time is flash reality.
Yeah.
You and I both know that.
Yeah.
But what I do know is that the people that are operating at the level that are here, they are attracting those other people that are a part of their tribe and they all want to be here. Everybody wants to be in Miami. And so if you are here and you have a great time and you have a wonderful experience with 5 or 10 really cool people that are all running in the same frequency as you want to be here more often with them. And so I've noticed it's like the experience is made better with community. And Miami has a tremendous community, whether it's you love to dance and you love to go out in salsa and bachata and merengue and be out here in that scene, or you want to be in church and you want to have a local community of Christians or of
Yeah, I noticed you had the head of the Voss
Vu
Church
son.
here, which I've been to several times, and I've seen the community there. And I think look, we are tribal animals. We are naturally drawn to communities. It's a part of our DNA. And I think that people naturally want to gravitate towards people who have similar like-mindedness.
Yeah.
And I think it's very, very, so an amazing observation that you've drawn that, because that's the conclusion I've come to. And I see when people are coming in right now, they want to be in an area that they feel socially safe.
For sure.
And social safety isn't just about avoiding someone who's going to, create direct danger, but it's more about the social interactions and the connections that you can have with other people where feel that what's going on around you mirrors what you want and what you need,
And
both
we have it all.
physically and mindset.
Because Miami 10 or 15 years ago, how long have you been here?
I've been here for nearly 20 years.
Nearly 20 years. So back 20 years ago, we had the party scene and we had the, it was
the stereotypes,
Yes.
typical Miami
And
vice.
that was, if you were into that culture or that community, this was your home, right?
Yeah.
And then it turned into the fake it till you make it community and the entrepreneurial community. Then it became the coaching community. And there were these, like, if you fit into this mold, you were here because Miami was your spot. But now we have everything from if you wanted to be into nutrition and fitness and wellness, we have that community. So I think Miami just has so many communities now that it caters to that once you find your tribe, you don't want to leave. And it's so beautiful. The weather is amazing. It's unbeatable.
75 and 80 degrees every single day.
It's beautiful.
The podcast concept, so as a form of media communication, it seems to have has transcended other mediums of communication. And what you highlighted a few seconds ago, this transition of how you see Miami's evolved. And as a result, when you see people coming through the door to run the podcasts, I'm imagining that you've seen also an evolution of the types going from the influencers to the coaches to the legitimate, authentic, real real operators.
Yeah.
Can you expand on that? Because I think that's a really interesting subject to see how it's authenticated Miami now in 2026.
Oh, for sure. Well, it's interesting, and I can see it directly from the clientele that we started with to where we are now
Yeah.
and how that's evolved. And it really is interesting because it's indicative of how the culture of Miami of itself has. So we obviously get creators of all kinds, but the only ones who are recording are the ones who are relevant and can continue and afford to keep going, right? Because podcasting is not cheap. We've mentioned that before on this podcast already. And the only reason why someone will fail at podcasting is simply because they stop, they quit, right? If you continue, you will succeed. Like that is just facts. You
will win. I mean, I'm nowhere near, but I remember. So there's a few podcasters that I followed over the years, and maybe it's the British man in me, but the penchant for British podcasters, Chris Williamson and of course Stephen Bartlett with Diary of a CEO. And I think both of them have said numerous times, it's not until I got to I think it was Stephen Bartlett who said, I didn't get to my thousandth episode before I felt like I'd actually really arrived.
Wow.
And I'm thinking of how many hours of production and videoing and shooting you do. And I think in any business, and I think this is very true. I find this very true of me because I've done this podcast and it's brought me a lot of joy. It's brought me a lot of, sleepless nights and exhaustion, wanting to get it right.
Yeah.
But even today, I had a lovely conversation with a realtor friend of mine who said, and if she's watching this, you know who you are. She said, I just want to congratulate you. I've seen your podcast. I've seen how it's evolved and you got really good at it.
Wow.
And I can see how much effort and I recognize the hard work that you've put in, and it's great to see how far it's come. And I thanked her for that. And I look back at it and I remember that as I'm trying to get my team right now to actually do their quarterly reports, which is most times a rather mundane thing, but very important in my arena of the business where analytics and clarity is all important. I sent them this quote, which is, people want to find their passion. But you don't find it, you create it. And you create it by getting good at something. And by getting good at stuff, you start by doing something that you suck at. But then you get good at it. And then you like it. And then people ask you how you found your passion. And that, I think, I see the passion that you have in this business. But I see how the ones who are really doing it and doing it consistently and for long periods of time, they're the ones who are authentic. And those are the ones who really add the value. And the guests that you've had on, and I want to get into those guests and I want to know all the behind the scenes. No. I want to know those stories because I know that you've had just titans of the business and media world. And as we go through it, I just want you to kind of expand on some of those. Like, give me some examples of things that you've seen that made you step back and go, "Wow, that was gold right there."
I feel like I don't want to lose track of the first question, so I'm gonna nail these, so we can full circle that, and I'm gonna answer it. So the first one was, I actually want to follow up with a stat because I know you love analytics.
Yep.
90% of podcasters will never make it past their third episode. 90% will never make it past their third episode.
Wow.
Let that sink in. Second is 99% of people will never make it to 21 episodes.
Wow. So I'm in the 1% already.
So in the 1%. And it's not hard to do to get to 21. That's 20 weeks.
Right.
The issue is that people jump right in and they don't realize what it does entail. And this goes back into like finding your passion, which is the quote that you mentioned. Like it starts with something that you're not good at, you don't know nothing about. And that's what happened here. Like I never knew how to run a camera.
Yeah.
I was out this weekend with a girl and I brought my camera with me and we went out to this park and I was like, let me just take a couple shots. Like it wasn't anything serious. I pulled it out and I was just like, I love the background. Let me take a couple pics. And I sent it off and she was like, oh my God, these are like 10 out of 10. This is amazing. Like these are so good. I didn't even know that you shot like this. And I was like, I mean, I must have shot hundreds of thousands of photos in the last couple of years of my clients in the studio. Like what's the difference? We're outside. I just changed a couple settings. It's like, I don't see myself as a photographer. It's just something that I know how to do. And then I shot for someone else and they were like, dude, these are amazing. And I was like, objectively, I might be the best shooter that we have because I've done it more than any of my employees, any of our, my business partner. I've shot more than all of them because I ran this business by myself for a year and a half for every single client.
And
I shot
you
videos
were
for
the
every client.
cameraman, the sound guy, and the editor.
And I was a social media manager, and I was running the inbox, and I handled all the phone calls and the text messages. Like, I did everybody's job. Like, I did it myself. I did them all at once also. So it was like, I got good at it because I had to, because at that point I was past a point of no return where I had given everything up in the mortgages. I was still getting some referrals, but I didn't even want to deal with it because I enjoyed this so much. But I will tell you, I didn't enjoy it at first. I hated it at the beginning. I liked it, but there were things that I hated because I was so bad at it. And so I did want to just, touch on that quote, because I think so many people are like, how do I find my passion? And it is so true. You just have to start doing things, and you'll find, even that you're not good at it, you'll get better. And what we find is that we end up finding passion for the things that we become good at. And as we become better at them, we're like, oh, dude, I love doing this because I'm so good at it.
And I think the respect that you get from your peers and from people who are your clients out there online doesn't come because you did one episode that was great. And I say this all the time.
Yeah.
I produced 135 reports. I've produced 1,100 videos more now. 80 episodes now, I think, of the podcast. And the beginning, it was horrible. I think if we go back and watch our first podcast, I would probably look at it.
I was thinking of it right now as you mentioned that woman who made an observation of you getting better. And I was like, I remember our first one, you kept going to your notes and you kept reading back on your paper. Yeah. And you barely glanced at your thing but twice,
Well, I mean, so don't speak too soon. But let's go into, because I think everybody wants to know, like, the Wizard of Oz, like, they want to pull back the curtain and be like,
happy to do
what makes these guys tick? Like, what is it that you learn from this? Because you've had a front row seat.
I know, to the most influential people in the world.
Yeah.
And so, I think what's interesting about them is these guys operate at a completely different level. Like, it's another level that most people can't comprehend.
Yeah. What are performers actually like? Like, what's their psychology?
Yeah. So, as an example, I use Theo because Theo is just like, out of all the clients I've ever had, I've never seen someone operate like Theo Von. Theo Von arrived several hours early, rearranged our entire studio. He didn't want the background to look like this. He wanted it to look like that. They went to Home Goods. That's why they came early, to make sure everything was set up how it needed to be. They left early. They went to Home Goods in Midtown. They bought a whole bunch of stuff, like a carpet and some different accent pieces and things. They brought them to the studio. They set up their own backgrounds in my space to make it look different. And then they had to make sure that it was coordinated in a way where they could put their sponsor cans, like they were drinking Celsius, and that was their big sponsor at the time. And they had Celsius cans all over the place. And they wanted to make sure they were strategically placed for, how their sponsors expect them to be. Right now, that's just set design and framing on the cameras. The second part was, this man had prepared notes and notes and notes of what they were going to talk about on the podcast. Much like you showed me you were prepared. That's high level.
Yeah.
Right. And I'll get into these in a second, a few other examples. But what he did that I've never seen anybody do. If you go back and you watch some of the reels from the first episode that I filmed with him, with Sexy Red, there were multiple clips that got over 10 million views. Every single one of those clips that got over 10 million views were premeditated jokes that he had prepared in his head. And somehow he had rehearsed so many times in his mind that he was able to navigate this woman into conversation where he hit the punchline for the joke. Those reels all got over 10 million views.
Yeah. When I see, like, they say that practice makes perfect. And when you see someone like that deliver, because he's not what I initially would expect someone like that to be like or look like. I mean, he's a guy with a mullet and a trucker hat.
You expect Joe Dirt.
I expect Joe Dirt. And then you get someone who's very cerebral, who's really thoughtful. But I want to understand, like, how is this guy thinking? Like, what is he doing? What's he saying that you go, wow, this guy's working at a different frequency? I
think it's the preparation. I think when he comes in, there's an expectation of sorts. There's an expectation. And the expectation is, this has to be perfect, right? It's like everything has to be placed in a certain way. Things have to be right. I want to see it. If it's not right, we got to fix it first before the client gets here. Because to them, the guest is the client, right? And they're delivering an experience for the audience viewers who are also clients. And so how do I deliver the best performance in order to give them something to watch, right? Instead of, I think what a lot of people do when they're operating at a low level is they'll come in with zero preparation. They just want to have a candid conversation with their friend. Who wants to watch a 2-hour conversation with your friend?
Yeah, no, I
Right.
can go to a bar or a
nobody
bus stop.
And that's why they get discouraged. And that's why most people never make it past 3 episodes, because the
Yeah.
first 3 were them and their friend talking about nothing, and nobody watched it, and they got discouraged and they didn't continue.
Yeah. But it's I've observed that it's the curiosity, that human curiosity combined with a certain level of energy
Yeah.
that really brings home the bacon when you see someone in a really engaging podcast, in a conversation.
Well, it's huge. And I'll tell you some of my best shows. So when we do the Shaq show, when we do it was the OGs with Udonis Haslem and Mike Miller. They now have a new show with UD and John Wall. When we've done The Pivot, when we've done Angel Reese's podcast, when we've done any of the NBA shows, when we've done the shows with Xavier Howard and some of the NFL guys, when we did the show with Tom Brady 2 weeks ago here.
Yeah, I forgot him. Oh my God, I can't believe I forgot to mention Tom Brady in the process of who you had on.
So I want to correlate something that happens with each of these shows. They all have a production team.
Mhm.
They arrive at bare minimum an hour early. So if they're booked for an hour podcast, they book at bare minimum 2, sometimes 4, because they want an hour of prep time before. They want to shoot their show, and then they'll sometimes stay for an hour after, or likely, because these guests are who they are, they always inevitably show up late.
Yeah.
So they might be 1 to 2 hours late. So I have some teams that, like some of the bigger shows, they'll book for 4 or 5 hour blocks because they know their guest is going to show up hours late.
Yeah.
It's just it is what it is. But one thing ties them all together. They all have a team. They all have different roles. They're all delegated with SOPs, KPIs. They're all hitting it like it's a business. They treat it like a business. And 2, they all have a run of show. Most people don't even know what a run of show is. What you showed me earlier would be the equivalent of a run of show. But I'll show you, there's something different. So all of my studios have TVs, especially the 3 over there. They all have TVs where most people, you could look over and you could see yourself on the TV.
Right.
And most people utilize it for that specific point, is to see themselves, make sure they're good. They're so focused on themselves. My big shows, they don't care what they look like. They're not even looking at that. What they want to see on the TV is their run of show. They want to see the questions that are coming up next. They want to see the points that are coming up. If something hits them and they're like, oh, you know what? I just got reminded there was this crazy thing that happened in 2010. In fact, hey guys, pull this up on the TV real quick. Can we see that? That's what they're using the TVs for. They're using the tools that we've installed in the studio for one specific reason, and that is to make their show the best it can be.
And to bring in the information and the value what they want as making it organic. But there's an energy to this as well. And when I see that, these guys, I imagine they're just massively enthusiastic. And do you feel when they come through, do you feel the energy when they come through?
As soon as they come through.
It's like a wave. It's like an aura around it.
I mean, when Shaq comes in, first of all, the guy's like almost 8 foot tall. So
but he's a high energy guy. So I've seen him down south.
And to answer your question, like, he wasn't what I thought he was when he first came in here. Like, we were all expecting we've got to be on our best behavior. We got to be, put together. Everybody, like, wear your move shirt, make sure that we're like locked in. And when he came in, he's like, yo, who got popcorn around here? I'm trying to eat. And so he's eating popcorn. There's more getting on the floor than put in his mouth. It's everywhere. And he's just a blast. Our team was like, hey, we want to do some like really funny skits for TikTok. And he was like, okay, I got some ideas for you guys. Let's do this.
Just creative.
And he just was like, all right, I'll do it, but I want to do my ideas. So we were like, yeah, you can do whatever you want. So he's coming up with ideas and we're doing skits with him. You're going to leave. And then I'm going to come out after and I'm going to have toilet paper hanging from my pants, And so she's like, this is crazy. What do you mean? And he's like, just trust me. It'll do great.
Yeah.
So we filmed it with him. We edited it and then we posted it and it did great, And it was like, because he has this mind of like, he knows what people want to see. And he was like, just trust me, we'll just do
very, very playfully creative.
Yeah, but it was his idea and he wanted to do it and it was fun. And that's the most important thing. The skits that we've done, because we've done some skits here in the studio that have gotten over 10 million views in a week from our own account with only 20,000 followers, right? The reason they did so well is because we had so much fun making them. So many people are concerned about doing things perfect. And I mentioned to you, and I want to touch on both sides of the coin, because Theo, when he came in, everything had to be perfect, but that was from the set, right? His cue cards and the things that he knew were going to go viral, those had to be perfect. They were prepared. But the actual conversation, he had fun. You could see he was interacting, he's making jokes, right? And when Shaq comes in, he's bantering back and forth with Tom. He genuinely wants to know what's happening.
Is that because they know their subject so well? They're so well prepared and so tuned into their role that for them, they're just able to pull from this mental database
Well,
of
I
information.
think that's one thing, but I think it goes even simpler than that. And this goes back to a quote that you had sent me this morning, which was something that Gary Vee said about care.
Yeah,
Love
there was some quotes, and again, on the preparation of doing this, I sent you a bunch of different quotes because your guests have been incredible.
Yeah.
And it's worth mentioning not just some of their quotes, but some of the general quotes that we look at. And the Gary Vee quote was, "The best marketing strategy ever, care."
Well, this is what I'm saying. These guys come in and they care. Like, he wants to know because they're in a different world. Like, here's the thing, and we mentioned this briefly off camera. When these guys go anywhere, and we had a very genuine conversation with a very famous woman that I won't mention just because of the nature of the conversation. I won't mention her name, but we had a one-on-one conversation, and she said, one of my employees asked her, like, "Hey, when's the last time you just like went to the mall or like went to a restaurant?" She was like, I can't do that. She's like, if I want to go to the mall, I have to close the mall out for the entire day. Like, I have to rent the mall out and nobody could be there. I can't go to the mall because I get swarmed. Like, it's not, I don't go to CVS. I don't go to Walgreens. I can't go to the store. I can't just hang out at a restaurant. I have to rent the place out, or I have to go to a very exclusive one that's like incredibly expensive that nobody else really knows about. She's like, I don't live a normal life. And that's the one thing that I hate about this. And when she was on the podcast and she was with someone that she had a genuine care and relationship with, she was able to have an open conversation with someone who was just their friend. They didn't want anything from her. They didn't need her for anything. They didn't care about her exclusivity or who she was or what they could get out of it. They just wanted to have a catch-up conversation. And that podcast did numbers because it was just two people having a genuine conversation. And what I've noticed is these people come into places and they can't even be treated like humans because their perception of where they are.
They're a brand in one part, and then also a slave to that brand that they've created. And I'm imagining, and look, I think that I sign a number of NDAs in my business when I have certain clients, and they come in, and I've recognized that the life that they lead is not the life. There's a cost that goes with that. And I think at the heart, being able to sit in front of someone and have a really authentic conversation without feeling like you're getting judged or like you're getting
sold.
measured or sold, isn't really sold to. And I think one of the great things about the podcast and podcasting in general is that if you do it right in a conversation like this, I'm not selling to you, you're not selling to me, and I'm certainly not selling to the audience. I'm just, like when I started this, I wanted interesting conversations with cool people. And I wanted to dig into what makes us do what we do and how can we make better decisions in doing it, which is hence the title of the entire podcast is about that.
Yeah.
And when you start to see the true intent of these guests like Gary Vee, who comes in, who's like, be authentic. That the other one I think I'd pulled up was vulnerability. And I think that it was actually Theo who said it, you can't be afraid to be vulnerable. That, to me, authenticity, vulnerability
It's big.
is so powerful because in a world where we're constantly getting pitched to and sold to, I think it's important to trust people and work with people who are motivated for the right reasons, not the wrong ones. And you've seen the wrong ones. We won't name names, but there are videos there are podcasts that come out where, there was a period of time, you've mentioned it, there were mentorship.
Oh my God.
Mentorship coaches
Yeah.
that was just BS, or what we have right now on social media. I see it all the time. I see videos of kids, and some of it may be real, so I may be talking out of turn, but I see videos of very young men, usually young men, talking about how they made $20 million in a company they launched 100 days ago. And they're driving a particular car and they're showing off. And
then they're selling a course.
And they're selling a course.
Yeah.
And it's
I know. We've filmed
bullshit.
those courses.
Yeah, I've seen one. And I talk to you about it. And I think that is
and it's true. And so this goes back to, one of the questions that I don't know if I fully answered earlier, which was you asking about like how I've seen the dynamic of podcasters change since I started this, right? And this is that, right? So number one, it's the analytic of 90% of podcasts never make it past their third episode. So they're constantly new people coming into the space.
Yeah.
Because if the old people quit and they never made it to the fourth episode, like we have to have more people in order to continue the cycle, right? So what happens is whatever's relevant at the time in Miami is the clientele that we get. And that relevancy is constantly changing. So we went from when I first started, it was just all, I mean, I got really blessed at the beginning. It was literally all A-list celebrities. Like that was my first, like,
Yeah, I was so impressed. I looked at your social feed and I was like,
what is happening?
good for Drew, but oh my God, like where the hell do these people come from?
Yeah. And then after that, it was like the influencer storm. So we still had the celebs, but they were like, you know, they're transient. So they're going to other cities and they're doing things and their pods are getting picked up and they're going to LA, right? Or Vegas or Houston. But then it was like the influencer community. They just dove in here. And so we had all the influencers from Ashton Hall to, I don't know, I could name hundreds of them, right? So we had all the influencers. And then we went through this period of time. I think it was like for 3 months straight, I had nothing but Spanish clients. I had one really big Spanish client. His name is Josue Peña, and he's actually become a partner in the business now because he loves us so much. And so Josue came in and all of the Spanish people follow him. So he started coming.
I think I know that name.
And so all the Spanish people came for like 3 to 4 months. It was every podcast, every day was Spanish. And I didn't know what they were saying. I didn't understand. I don't speak Spanish. So it was just like, but they were all coming. And this goes to show that like, as long as you give a good service to people, it doesn't really matter. Like if you even speak their language, they can tell authenticity and genuine.
Yeah, I don't speak Spanish either. I mean, people are still amazed. I live in Miami. I sell real estate, have done for many years. And they're like, how can you run a team at this scale, do this level of production, and you don't speak Spanish? And I'm like, well, I have like the Microsoft philosophy, which is you don't have to be surrounded by people. I don't have to, as long as I'm surrounded by people who do.
Yeah, that's right.
People who have that skill that I don't have, which is fortunately what I have. I have an incredible team who speak multiple languages.
Yeah. And so we went from that to a phase of course creators. And so I think there was like 6 to 7 months where like 90% of the shoots that we did were courses. Like I was filming courses all the time. And it used to frustrate me because back then I was behind the camera and they were all using ChatGPT scripts. And I'm like, how does anybody buy this? I don't understand because it's all chat, right?
Well, this is the authenticity versus, this is the what I titled authenticity versus image, which is like how many of the videos that you watch online are authentic and real, and how much of it is just a painted image designed for some sort of outcome that they want that benefits them. It doesn't benefit you, it benefits them. So you would see these courses.
Oh yeah. It happened for a while. And then that kind of phased out. And then we went into a lot of what I call mock pods. This was very hot. I mean, it's still relatively hot. So we even have it on our website. If you go to our website and you go to book a session, we have a package that's specifically called mock pod.
What's the mock pod?
So a mock pod is not a real podcast. You're just sitting here and you're reading from a teleprompter and it's meant to look like it's a podcast. And this was hot for a very long time.
So it's a faux podcast.
It's not a real podcast.
It's a fake podcast.
Yeah, so you're still getting 2 camera angles. It looks like you're on a podcast, but there's nobody in that chair. Like you're just reading from it.
So are people using that to create shorts and reels and then post this and then it's just not going anywhere?
And then I would see people in the comments and they'd be like, hey, where can I watch the full episode? And like, I'm the only one that knows that there's no real episode.
Yeah.
But I watched these things go by millions and millions and millions of views. I remember one of them I did for a woman who flew in and she must have filmed, I don't know, 100 of these. Every single one of them got over 5 million views. It was like she was hot and she was just every clip was going viral. And I was just like, it's all scripted, but nobody knew at the time. Yeah. This was fresh. And now people have started to catch on. So we're not doing as many of those because I think the engagement has started to fall off. And now what I've noticed is a lot of people are going back to having, number one, real authentic conversations. That's never died. That's always been here since day one, stuff like this.
Yeah.
But number 2 has been the number 1. What was number 2? I just lost my train of thought.
You had the number 1 was like going from the short form into the long form doing the podcast.
Oh, I'm sorry. Number 2, educational.
Yeah.
So education, real education, not ChatGPT education, but real education from people who know like what they're talking about.
This is
performed time and time again.
Yeah. I mean, education, I think look, Google started internet. A lot of the what we see today started as a form of educational sharing. It was passing information from, intellectual. And that's why Google systems algorithms are still very much based. If you have something grounded in a university study, you get a much better ranking. And I sit on the board at FIU, and I've been involved with the University of Miami. And I think that the true education, which is learning for the purpose of self-betterment, not and the betterment of those around you, not for financial gain. Real education is not designed for the financial gain. It's okay because I want to become smarter, better.
Absolutely.
And I find that when you reflect on things like long-form podcasts, you can't fake this.
No.
You can fake shorts, you can fake reels, you can do some and I've seen some incredibly slick short-form social media through different Instagram pages that are brilliantly done now to a level with deep faking, with special animations, with special tricks, with whatever you can think of, you can come up with, and you can create. But I think that there is value in doing something that deep down, coming back to the first point, when this episode started, what creates friction, what becomes difficult, becomes our passion.
Yeah.
And it's what teaches us to get to that level. And people really, really respect and respond to that. When you dig into that, like the fake podcasts, those clips, you'll get their attention for a second. But if there's nothing behind that, they're on to the next thing. And they're on to that quick dopamine hit for the next moment. Yeah. I couldn't fake. I'm not that smart. I couldn't fake this. This could only be what it is. And I think that it's the creative investment. I titled this, and I think we're seeing now in Miami as a whole, I think there is significant amount of creative investment, which means not just financial, monetary, but the time, the investment of time, because that's our greatest asset. And investing this amount of time shows true intent.
Yeah, absolutely. Even just you coming down here. I mean, you from Fort Lauderdale to here is at least an hour.
Well, I'm all over the shop. I was up in Fort Lauderdale for a listing presentation there. I'll be back in Coconut Grove in another hour and a bit for another client.
But it's just the investment in time. Like you invest time in the things that you care about.
Yeah.
And I think whether it's people, passions, projects, if you're not invested in it, then you don't really love it.
I think you have to. I think I get it every day. I have multiple conversations every day with clients who will call me. And I just say thank you. Thank you to those people who have said this to me in the past and who have called me and said, I've watched a dozen of your videos because I've got 1,100 of them online. It's taken me thousands, hundreds of thousands of hours. And they've said, I watched all these videos. I watched one about the neighborhood. I watched one about, sinking buildings. I watched one about insurance issues. I watched one about, the best buildings and the worst buildings. I've watched all these different, and I just want to say thank you because it really, really helped me.
Wow.
It really helped me make a decision, make a better decision, and then pick up the phone and give you a call.
That's awesome.
And that means a lot to me because they recognize the amount of time I spent doing it, number one, and number two, the authenticity. And as you start to do this more and more, the drive now is that I like to think pretty decent at it. I've still got a long way to go. I'm nowhere near where I'd like to be, but that's the journey. But I look at these guests, these people that you've had on the show and that they're truly the top operators. Yeah. And everybody wants to know what makes an operator tick. So if you could give me like 3 lessons, 3 things and we can pause this and you can think about it for a few minutes. 3 things that you've learned from your guests, whether it's from Tom Brady or Gary Vee or Theo or Shaq or anybody else, 3 key lessons that you've learned from that top 1%, that 1% of 1%.
Okay. Number 1 is you can't win without a good team. You need a good team. And it's not all about you. And we always heard this since we were kids. There's no I in team, right? Mm-hmm. But it's truly about building a good team. I mean, every person that I've seen from whether it's Shaq or UD or Brady or any of these guys, I mean, Rick Ross, as an example, when Ross, I don't know, let's call him Rick Ross. When Rick Ross came to film, this was wild. This guy came with like 10 people, right? Within a matter of 30 seconds, they transformed my entire studio they had champagne bottles over here. They had wrap snacks over here. They had his album covers they put on the walls behind my TVs, like right next to my TVs. They put big album covers of him and whoever he was doing a collab with at the time. And then they just put his product everywhere. And then the guy came in and he was just swagged out, and he had a blunt in his hand, and he had his girl around his arm. And he's like, "What's up, fellas?" He goes in and he was like, "It looks good. Looks good. It looks good." And he was just so chill and so swaggy. And he was like, "Yeah, I like that there. I like that there. Why don't you move this bottle over here for me?" And like, it was just like he had a whole team, a PR team that came and distributed all of his snacks, all of his products, all of his brands. And he was just like, and he told me, he was like, every opportunity is an opportunity for money. And then I was like, I didn't really get it at the time, because I was just appalled at like how this whole squad came and just put stuff everywhere. And then looking back, I'm like, dude, this guy's brand was on everything. And he, in the middle of the pod, he's unwrapping his bottle of champagne and he's pouring his own thing. And he's like, salute to whatever his brand was at the time. And like, he's like, cheers to whatever. And then he was like, have you tried the wrap snacks? You really got to try and he was plugging his business in the entire time, all of his products. And so I'm just thinking, and I'm like, dude, the guy has a phenomenal team. They know that he wants to incorporate his brand into every interview, and they came ahead of time and they set everything up before he got there.
That's maybe the illusion. Sometimes they see the person on the podcast and they think that's just it. The whole business, the whole brilliance, the whole success comes down to that one person sitting in a chair.
No,
but in reality,
the whole team.
Yeah, I mean, it's the David Siddons group for a reason. It's not David Siddons, and success is not me. It's actually my team who make it.
Dude, if this was just me, we would still be at my apartment where this business started.
Yeah, we'd be two struggling guys trying to figure stuff out.
Yeah, I mean, I have a COO now. I have I have a guy that does our finances. He's like a fractional CFO. We have a operations manager. I tried to get this operations manager for 2 years. And she was just like entertaining other things. She was doing all this other stuff. I knew she was amazing, but I couldn't get her to work. Yeah. And then we finally made enough, because we didn't have enough to pay her at the time. And we finally got into a position where I could afford her salary. And I was just like, look, I could afford you now. Are you down? And she was just like, oh yeah, I'd love to. Yeah. So she came, and she does so much. Like, I don't even know how we would operate without her if she left. Yeah. We have wonderful techs that set up all the cameras and make sure that everything's good. And like everything just runs because of the team that we have.
Takes a village.
It really does. And so I see that because our most successful shows, they have fantastic teams that show up hours before the talent, get the run of show ready, make sure their notes are on the TV. They call them and they're like, hey, if you're not going to make it on time, let's have this conversation in the car. We need to go to the run of show. And they're going over the questions. They're getting things prepared. And so that's number one, is you have to have a team. Mm-hmm. And because of that, you have to be a good leader, right? Now, I think there's two parts of being.
And is that number two?
I would say it's number two. And here's the reason why. It does go back to number one. You have to be able to lead your team well. Mm-hmm. But part of being a good leader is that you have to be able to serve others at a very high capacity. And so I would almost say more than leadership, it would be you have to be able to serve. You get paid in direct proportion to the problems that you're able to solve for somebody.
That's brilliant. Say that again, because I think that is something that sometimes people miss. And I know that from those operators who work at a very high level, I can call anybody that and again, I'm doing a series on operators in Miami. All of those individuals, when I call them up and they are running billion-dollar companies, they will answer the phone and be like, what can I do for you? How can I help you?
Yeah.
And that's almost like it's just ingrained. They recognize that straight away.
Huge.
So we're going to say that again.
That is paid in direct proportion to the problems that you solve for people. And so you solve bigger problems, you get bigger paychecks.
Yep.
And the thing about problems is that the bigger the problems become, the more people they take. So that's why I said it kind of goes back to number one, because you have to have a team.
Yeah.
But you need to be able to lead them in a way. And you can't lead them if you're not willing to serve. I always say and this is actually a quote from Rich Wilkerson, my pastor at VU, is that if you're too big to serve, then you're too small to lead. Mm-hmm. If you're too big to serve,
that's really
too small to lead.
Brilliant, because I think misunderstanding leadership, heavy is the head that wears the crown, and leading is not easy. Leading sometimes takes a lot of sacrifice.
Huge.
And I think it's something that people underestimate because they think it comes with the glory, but it comes with a lot of baggage too. But
you know,
when you
it's
do it,
interesting. I had one of my team members, they said to me, I came in kind of late today. I came in at like, I don't know, 10 o'clock. And someone was like, oh, it was nice for you to come in today. And I was like, no problem. You know, I love to be
happy to help.
And what they didn't see, and it's not worth even mentioning,
Yeah.
but I was here until 2 o'clock in the morning last night.
It's like, yeah.
I had to get some sleep and then come back. So, but they don't see that because I think they left at 7, right? So it's like, or 6 or whatever. So, it's the things that people don't see that you do in private that are rewarded in public. And that's the part of being a good servant leader, right? If you know how to serve others at a massive capacity, then you'll be paid in direct proportion to that.
Yeah,
And
it's a high value proposition. I think that's when you don't have to, and I say this all the time, I don't have to negotiate my fee
yeah,
much of the time because I know my value and my clients know my value. And if they don't know my value, then they're not my clients. I don't want them to be my clients.
and it's like, you don't even have to say go somewhere else because they'll just naturally go there. And then you just won't have to deal with them. Honestly.
So it's a win-win for everybody at the end.
So, actually, oddly enough, not to get too off topic, but on that point, there was a massive change in our business model that happened when I brought on my COO. He doubled our prices, and I was like, bro, we can't do that. We can't do that. We're going to lose everybody. And at the time, we were very competitive. We were one of the lower price. I mean, we were still high, but we were probably mid tier. He was like, dude, we're going to go out of business if we keep our prices at this level. This is crazy. He was like, you have the best equipment in the city out of any other studio. You invested hundreds of thousands of dollars before I even came in. He was like, we have to double our prices or we're not going to have margin. And I was like, I think we're going to lose business. And we did lose business. We lost a lot of business. But the business that we retained and the new business that we acquired took us to the next level. We went from 1 unit in my apartment building to 2 units in my apartment building. We then added additional services and offers at a premium, and we went to 3 units in the building. We continued to do that until we ended up getting this commercial space and building this out. It was a $250,000 build, not including the camera gear, just in the construction, right? How did we do that? It's because we raised our prices and we got clients that appreciated our value and saw that, and they stayed with us. And we served them at an incredibly high level in order to justify the prices that we charged.
Yeah, people will pay you what you think you're worth.
Yeah.
And I see it all the time where I see someone in my business selling an expensive piece of real estate and they're doing it for 1% or 1.5%. And what that tells me, and what I always say to the client is, if you've got somebody who's willing to do it for that amount of money, that should tell you 2 things. Number one, if they're willing to negotiate against themselves so easily, what are they going to do with your property? They're going to fold immediately. They're not going to fight for you. And number 2, it tells you that they don't have anything to really offer. Because if they really did have something to offer and they knew it and they had skills, they wouldn't be making those compromises.
That's right.
What's point number 3? Because this is the third one.
Well, I think you
2 great
touched on it.
points.
And that is mindset. You have to have a mindset. All of these people that we spoke about, they have a mindset of they're the best. They're the best at what they do. They show up and they know that they're the best at what they're going to film. They know they're the best to even talk on the topic. They know that they're the best to interview this guest. They are the best. And what's interesting about that, and this is something, that I recently developed. I had a keynote speech at University of Miami a couple of weeks ago, and I spoke on an acronym that I developed around the move, and it's MOVE, which stands for mindset, obedience, vision, and execution. And the reason why mindset is number 1 is because it dictates every single thing that happens in our life. The unfortunate part about mindset is mindset, because it dictates your life, will either set you up for success or will be the reason why you fail. Because your mindset is rooted in identity. Your identity is your mindset. And if you have an identity that believes that you won't make it, no matter what's given to you, no matter what opportunities come your way or you're presented with, you will fail.
Yeah.
Because you believe that you're a failure.
Yeah.
And for the longest time, for most of my life, before I ever went to the retreat center where we met, I believed that I was worthless. And I believed, because it had been spoken over me so many times as a child, I was like, I'm not good enough. Well, where did I get that belief? Someone told me that.
Yeah.
And that became my identity for a long time.
There's something that I ponder on as well when I listen to this, and all these things are brilliant and so true.
Yeah.
And I think about mindset, and I think about what your mindset is. And I come from a very disciplined world. I come from a very regimented, my background, my education is very, very regimented, very disciplined. My background was sports, so that's very disciplined. And I heard something that I thought was brilliant, which said, discipline eats motivation for breakfast.
For sure.
And I think you see these incredible disciplines that day in, day out are required by these high-level super performers that they won't compromise on. They're so disciplined, they won't accept putting this here or that there. They've got to have everything right because they are searching for, say, precision perfection. They're searching for such a level of output that they won't compromise, and their discipline won't allow them to compromise.
Well, the thing and about that, discipline is truly the only thing that will change your mindset. You could do all of the therapy that you want. You could go into your subconscious. You could meditate. You could do all this stuff. That's great. I'm not saying those are bad. I've done all of them. They're amazing. Breath work is one of the reasons we even have this studio. But what I will tell you is the one way that you really change mindset is by the discipline that you keep. As an example, if I were to go to the gym starting tomorrow, thinking that I've never been in the gym in my life, I go to the gym tomorrow. That one workout, no matter how hard it was, no matter how much effort I gave it, is literally going to do absolutely nothing. Except it's going to hurt, and the next day I'm going to be sore. It does nothing. I see zero transformation.
Yeah.
But you know that if you continue to do that every single day for the next 6 to 9
I've done
months,
for 33 years of my life, my
your
friend.
body will transform. And
Yep.
so what happened as something that you weren't good at, probably hated, all of a sudden it becomes a part of you. And now I can't not go to the gym. I have to go to the gym.
And now they call that your passion.
Now it's not only a passion, but it's a part. It is my identity. I'm a person that goes to the gym now, right? That's just who I am.
Yeah.
It's a part of my identity.
Yeah, Arnie Schwarzenegger said, it's like, why do you go to the gym now? You've done this for 40 years. He goes, well, why do I brush my teeth every morning? Same reason.
So, and that's what I've noticed is that the difference between us and them is that they just have hundreds and hundreds of thousands of more reps than we do. They've done it over and over and over again at the highest capacity, with care, with authenticity, with tenacity, despite the fact that they probably didn't want to do it. They did it anyways, when we may have decided not to.
Yeah.
And they continue to do it over and over and over again, which is the thing we mentioned at the very beginning, that you will succeed if you don't quit. They did it until they couldn't do it anymore. And then they likely retired and did something else.
Basketball player, footballer, musician,
Yeah.
entertainer, comedian, they've all followed the same path.
That's it.
I want to finish off with the final thing, which is what's next for the move? What is on your horizon? Because I truly believe you have built something amazing, but I know that this is the start for you, and there is so much more ahead of you. And I want to be able to have the pleasure of sitting here in a few years from now and say, I freaking told you so, man.
Dude,
What's next for you?
Well, I have a big vision. I've had this vision since 6 months into starting this business. You know, I made a joke to my business partner yesterday. He didn't think it was that funny. It probably wasn't. But, you know, I walk into this building sometimes and I get discouraged. I'll be honest. It's amazing. I'm grateful for it. I really am. Like, I love what we've built, but I'm like, bro, this is so small. This is not what I had in my vision. Like, this to me, I cannot be here for another 2 years. I signed a 3-year lease. We've been in here for, I don't know, 5 months now. I need to finish out my lease and go on to the next project. And we need to start construction on that like soon, because my vision is I want to have the biggest creative hub in the entire country, which isn't just podcast studios. Like, it needs to be more than that. This needs to be a hub where every creator from around the world flies to in order to hang out, because we have the biggest community, talking about community of high-level creators of anywhere else in the world. So what does that mean? For us, we're going to have a much bigger facility than this one. It's going to be a creative co-working space where creators can come and they can co-work, and they have a desk to sit, or they can rent an office. We're going to have a gym with a sauna and a cold plunge for those who want to do that. Every single machine in the gym will be set up in a way where it can be videoed in a specific way, because the lighting is so perfect, right? It'll be catered specifically for content creators, right? Then we're going to have the studios, obviously. That's the core of our business. We'll have the editing bay with all the editors. We'll have a space for meet and greets. We're going to have a coffee shop. We're going to have all these, you know, things where people can go buy croissants and breakfast, and they don't have to leave. And then we'll have a massive event space, much like the one that we're building next door.
Yeah.
And that event space will be the home of massive seminars, as well as meetups and networking events every week for creators to come. And so I want to build this hub. At some point in time in the next year, we're going to be doing a capital raise in order to start breaking ground on this facility, because I know it's possible. And I've seen people with less vision and less passion and less skill get a lot more money than we need in order to build things that have way less impact. And this is going to be the place, the hub of people to share their message, share their testimony, meet other creators, and build community that you're not going to find anywhere else in the world.
I think that is amazing. And I would say to my guests and audience, and I have some incredible people who have found me over the years through the podcast, if this is interesting to you and you want to know more, we put the Drew's information at the bottom and the moves information below, because I think that you have created something amazing. You're going to create something 10 times more amazing. And I truly believe that Miami didn't become famous. It became formidable, and it's becoming more formidable because of people like you, who are the young creatives and the young forces who are wanting to move the city forward. And at the same time, we have incredible people that I get to know and meet who are either developers or they are, operators, educators, who are really wanting Miami to become this incredible, flourishing playground sandbox of creativity and thoughtfulness, and that's what the passion comes from. That's why podcasting is such an amazing experience, because it feeds our soul with that level of education and knowledge and things that we crave to understand. Why does this all exist? How do we make sense of this? Why do we do what we do? Why do they do what they do? How can we make better decisions, and how can we move forward? This has been an incredible podcast for me. I honestly mean that. It means a lot to me to be able to look inside your mind, and there's a lot more I want to pull out, where I get to see people who are world-renowned operators, creators, thought thinkers, who you've got to experience and see. And I think that is, it's coming in, it's synergistically coming into your mind. You're absorbing it like a sponge, and I think that's setting you up for greatness. To the audience, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Again, if you'd like to know more about Drew and the Move, see me below. Hopefully this is a good look inside my mindset as a podcaster. Thank you all for watching. Hope you really enjoyed this episode as much as I did.
Thank you.
And see you soon for another episode of the Better Decisions podcast. Thank you.
Thank you, bro.
That was awesome.